You see, the barrenness of that fig tree was contrary to the whole purpose of the planting. You see, a fig tree that bears no fruit is worthless. It's useless. In other words, it's simply occupying a space. But it's not fulfilling the function it was put there for. You know, we live in days of great challenges economically. And none face the challenges economically more than the farmers. But let me tell you this, my friend. A farmer has to get rid of the livestock if it's not producing. And I'll tell you the reason why he has to do that. Because he simply realizes that a stock that's not producing is draining the profits. And the only thing he can do is get rid of it. And that's what's happening here. We see the master comes and he says, I've examined 3 years of fig tree. And what the fig tree is doing is this. It's not only occupying a space, but it's doing something else. Listen, it's withdrawing the juice of the earth. It's taking up all the blessings. And that's your fact, as it withdraws the juice, it's keeping it from some others. You see, it's not only useless, it's a hindrance. And the master says, cut it down. Some people say this is a severe declaration. Let me tell you, my friend, if you realize just how severe it is and how simple it is to take all the blessings of God and to misuse them, your chief end is to glorify God, and all you're doing is glorifying yourself. All you want is you're building self. And your religion and your life is built on the glorifying of yourself and the fulfilling of the lusts of the flesh and the lusts of self. God's not in your story, and God's not really in your life. Oh yes, you've got the leaves, you've got the smattering of religion. That's why perhaps you're even here. That's what they're doing us to go to church. Let me tell you, my friend, this fig tree had simply taken all from its owner and had given back nothing in return. That's what the sinner's doing. That's what the unsaved person in this church is doing, friend. You have been taken from God for years. And there's nothing you can't give in return. Because you have a sinful heart. And there's nothing you can offer to God tonight. Only come as a sinner to Christ and offer that sinful heart and humble yourself and confess your sin and claim the precious blood of Christ. You see, here's a fig tree. Hear what the master said. Listen, these 3 years I have come seeking fruit on this fig tree. He said, I find none. What a disappointment. What is your life tonight? What are you living for? If you're an unsaved person, let me be quite frank with you tonight. You're living for yourself. And living for yourself, you're living for your sin. You say, but I'm not down. And I heard her sister testifying, and she was out in the clubs and the pubs and all of those things and all that went with it. Let me tell you, you say, preacher, but I'm not there. Let me tell you, my friend. Every day you live and every breath you breathe, you're living for self. And self is sin. What a disappointment. You are to the God who gave you breath, the God who gave you life. And then thirdly, I want you to notice, here's the recognizable restraint. Because it says in verse number 8, here's the man that looked after the ground. It says, he answered, saying unto him, Lord, let it alone this year also, till I shall dig about it and dung it, and if it bear fruit, well. And if not, then after that thou shalt cut it down. And I want you to notice here, the vineyard master, caretaker of the vineyard, the dresser of the vineyard, he makes a plea. He says, let us alone this year. It was a plea of grace. Friend, I think of all of our lives, and I think of the graciousness of God. You know, we're living in a day of grace. Grace is great riches at Christ's expense. You know, salvation is absolutely free. When I think of how gracious God is and how long-suffering God has been, I think of the illustration way back in the book of Genesis. God looked upon this earth, and God saw the sin, and it grieved God in his very heart that he had made man. What a disappointment. And God says, I will destroy. Then it says this, but Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And God called this man Noah in 120 years. He went out preaching, and as he built the ark that God had provided, and God had designed, and God had purposed, and God had planned for the salvation of Noah. And as he built the ark, he preached the word of righteousness. And he cried out to the people to repent and turn to God. 120 years. He preached. I tell you, he'd have been looked upon as a failure. Be honest, I was a jest. If it had been in a congregation, they probably would have sacked him. It was 120 years and nobody saved, except his own family. It's hard going for him. But I'll say this before God. What a testament of the grace of God that his family were got in. Heard about a gospel preacher just this past week. He went out and sought to reach souls for Jesus Christ, and two of his sons died, drunkards in Mount Ahead. It broke his heart. Noah's family. He got in, but 120 years he preached. And then God says, yet 7 days. Yet 7 days. The grace of God. Now I look in this congregation up there in the gallery, and I see young people, and I look downstairs and I see you folks, and let me tell you this. When I say this with a broken heart, there's still some of you and you're not saved. To be honest, in all the world, there's one thing I want more than anything else, that you might know the Lord. And I just say earnestly, God, let it alone this year also, that I might dig about it and done it. You see, he said, and if it bear fruit, you see, that was the purpose. That's the purpose. And so we find that there was here the dresser of the vineyard. He said, I'm going to dig about it this year, and I'm going to do it this year. He did all he could. Let me tell you, friend, there's something I've learned in the gospel ministry is this, that the preacher's not able to save anybody. Salvation's of the Lord. Now we have to dig it, and we haven't done it. We've got to do the work. We've got to preach the word. Some people say, I don't believe. Those people who are ultra-Calvinists, they turn around and say, you see, I don't believe that man has any responsibility at all. You don't need to witness to anybody. You don't need to, hand out a gospel tract. You don't have to testify to anybody. You haven't to pray for anyone. If they're elect, they're going to come, and, man has to do absolutely nothing. I believe, my friend, that God gives you and me a responsibility. He says, ye are my witnesses, and witnesses to witness.